Welcome back to another edition of the In the Game interview series. Today we've got Liam Shannon with us. Liam, why don't you give us your story?
Hey, thanks for having me, Reed. Appreciate that. So my story, in a nutshell, I guess, is I came over to the States originally to coach with MLS camps, which a few people might remember. They were pretty big back in the day. They're no longer operating. Nothing to do with me. But I came over here originally to coach for lack of a better idea. And when I was over here, fell in love with the country. I got an opportunity to have a couple of college tryouts. Was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to Berry College, which is in Rome, Georgia. So I started there in 2002, and I've been in the States ever since. I played all 4 years in college, and I taught some high school after that, and then I moved to North Carolina. I think around about the time I met you, about 2010, to coach at Pfeiffer University, to be the assistant there to a guy called Jason Smith, who was the Atlanta Silverbacks coach back in the day. So that was pretty good, learning a bit from him. And after a season at Pfeiffer, I took a full-time position at the youth soccer club I was working at the same time. And so I kind of got into youth coaching almost, not by accident, but not as my primary interest in coaching, and I've just stayed ever since. I fell in love with youth coaching, and yeah, that's my story.
Yeah. I think you had just kind of moved into that youth academy role whenever we met doing our international youth licenses.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was a different license for me. That was a different experience. I really enjoyed that class.
Yeah. I enjoyed I think most people enjoyed the national youth license. Like most licenses, they think the content is good. It's valuable. You pick up a couple of things for sure, but it's the people that you meet and the conversations that you have spontaneously, when you're meeting afterwards, or just having a side chat with one of the instructors. Those are the valuable parts. That's when I think you pick up real nuggets. So yeah. I do value the content of licenses, but I definitely think it's the off the field moments where you learn the most.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with why I'm really doing this, and that's just to get to know more coaches and try to help people get some exposure, and try to help coaches meet coaches and through the only way that we really can right now. I mean, this is a really difficult time to network, so it's a chance for people just to get to know more about people, for sure.
Yeah, great idea, Reed. Great idea.
I appreciate that. So what really got you into coaching? What really drew you to the profession?
So my first memory of coaching is actually, I don't know if you call it coaching or just bossing other kids around on the playground when I was 7. I really was that young. I remember it very clearly, playing with my friends. I think we were playing with a tennis ball. We're talking about like being in maybe 2nd or 3rd grade. So the older kids had stolen soccer balls, because you bring a soccer ball into school, the older kids steal it. It's just the way it is. So we were playing with a tennis ball, and I remember not liking the way things were going, on our little field. And I remember stopping the game and moving people around. Yeah, it's a very, very clear memory for me. Like I said, I don't know if you consider it coaching or just being an annoying kid, but I just had a clear picture in my mind of how the game should go from a very early age, like what I wanted to see, what I liked, what I didn't like. So I don't know, I kind of looked back on that when I moved into coaching full time and thought that, maybe this really is something that I was meant to do. You know, it's pretty much my earliest memory.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of why, or the first experience I have with coaching, I guess.
Okay. Very nice. What are some parallels? Obviously, you know, growing up and playing in England, you know, before you came over in college age. What are some parallels that you think we have in the United States to kind of the youth system in England, and obviously, what are some of the differences?
Well, I can only see. I get asked that question a fair bit, and I can only reference what it was like when I was growing up, which was in England, you know, say 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you what it's like in England now because I've been here for so long. I can tell you back then that the biggest difference is that I don't remember playing any sort of organized soccer whatsoever. School, club, rec, you know, whatever, until it was U10, and that was when we paid. It was for the Cub Scouts. Like, that was my first experience, and the first experience I had playing club was a year after that, was U11, and that was the first, not only that I'd played, but I had ever heard of anybody playing ever, like, you know, and that is probably the biggest difference, really, and I think it goes back to a cultural and geographical issue. You know, geographically in the States, you know, we can't help how big a country we are and how spread out people are. It's not like a lot of kids can go next door and knock on their friend's house, you know, because their friend lives a mile away, you know, and that just doesn't happen in England. Everyone's a lot closer together. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of our houses are made out of bricks. They make very handy rebounders. You know, you don't get the plastic sidings that you get over here, like subtle things like that made a big difference. And then culturally, it's part of football in England. Soccer in England is part of the national fabric. It's like part of the DNA, even if you don't want to have anything to do with it. You still know what's going on. It's still something that's talked about on TV. It's still in the paper. There's no getting away from it. And that's not the case over here. Those are the differences, I guess. Parallels, I would say there's as much talent here as there is in England or anywhere else, for that matter. It's a question of how it's nurtured, which I guess I touched on. You know, I know that in England now, people will take their kids for soccer training at younger ages, but I don't think that they have the same organized type of structure that we do over here. You know, like U5s playing games and keeping scores and, you know, league charts and playoffs and that nonsense. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I think, you know, and obviously, you know, growing up here and watching, you know, soccer and football become more popular. I will remember as a U10, I was playing 11v11 on a full-size field and won my first state championship at U10. So we were traveling the state as 10-year-olds, which now it's just out of the question to be traveling that distance and going out of state to play in tournaments and doing all that stuff, which is insane for 10-year-olds to be thinking about at this age.
Yes, I would have to agree. Like you said, part of the differences between the States and European countries and South American countries, you know, you can't really help. You do need, even at the youth levels, more of an organized, you know, structure just to be able to facilitate games. You know, because you can't meet up with your mates so easily and play in the street, you know. But I think the real interesting question is, to what degree do you take the severity of that organization to? You know, U10s don't need to be traveling the state. And such, you know, U6s don't need to have have playoff championships, or be playing, 8v8.
Yeah.
Those things, I'm happy that I think all over the world, definitely in England and here in the US, it's not being done to the degree that I would like, but at least there are adjustments made.
Yeah. I think it's moving in the right direction with some of those younger age groups, and I think we're still trying to kind of figure that out as we kind of hit that 12, 13, 14-year age group where we're starting to lose kids, just because some just want it for the fun experience, and that's when some kids really push it into the competitive. That's where they really want to ramp things up and be serious about it. And I think that we as a country and as coaches, I think we've got to kind of find that fine line of giving both groups what they really want.
Yeah, definitely. The more people playing soccer, the better. And when you sent over your, sort of a very brief list of questions to me, that was the first one. Like, why coach? And I find that the simple questions are usually the most interesting to answer because they really get you thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, after you scrape everything away, and there's lots of factors. The main reason that I coach and the main reason that I like coaching is because I think it brings people together.
Mm-hmm.
The sport, I think the sport is very special. All sports do bring people together, that's true, but I think there's something particular about soccer that works differently than everything else. I think that's why it is the most popular sport in the world. And I really like that it brings people together. It brings people closer. It doesn't matter what religion you are, what color you are, what your economic status is, which country you're from. You can bond over the game. And you can't do that if people aren't playing, So the more people playing, the better.
For sure. So kind of going back to some of those questions, what style of play do you typically try to have with your teams?
Okay, so I have a very specific answer for this, but I'll give you a touch of background, and I think it's valuable. When I was in between jobs about 6 years ago, I decided to dedicate that time to coming up with a philosophy or two. And I would encourage every coach to do this. I think it helps with clarity of what you want and gives you direction. And I don't know how you can be efficient without those things. So I came up with a philosophy on the style of play for my teams. 3 points. I like my teams, and I try and encourage my teams to play attractive, aggressive, and adaptable. And each one of those, AAA, I think was a lucky coincidence. It makes it easy to remember, but I tried to also fit that terminology into phases of play. So I don't want them just to be words that you spit out. So I like my teams to be attractive in possession. So when we have the ball, I like to keep the ball. Short passes are great. If a long pass is the best pass, then let's do that. That's fantastic. If you can play it back, play it back. If you can switch the field, switch the field. If you can play a penetrating ball, play a penetrating ball. Some combo play. I absolutely love combo play, but keep the ball. I like to be attractive. Aggressive in transition. So whichever transition you're talking about, either just losing or just gaining the ball, I like to be aggressive in it. So if we lose the ball, we're going right after it. If we win the ball, then we are going right for the nearest advantage. And adaptable in defense, because it's not up to you how the other team is going to play, but you can direct them on how you want them to play if you're adaptable. If you set a rigid defensive formation, then you're in. You can be in big trouble when you come up against quality teams or teams that are adaptable. So those are my three things. I like to be attractive, aggressive, and adaptable.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. Kind of, obviously, I think, it goes back to what you're talking about. If you as a coach, if you haven't really thought about your philosophy, then I don't understand how you can really lead your team to play in a certain way.
I agree.
To really fit that philosophy. And I think, me personally, my teams, whether I'm coaching, a club team, my college team, my ODP team, we typically play a very high energy pressing style, like to lock things into small areas and try to make people have to play to break us down. But like you said, if you're not able to adjust to that, if we're playing against a quality team that we can't get numbers around the ball, then we're going to have to adjust and kind of change the way that we play a little bit to allow us to be successful as well. So.
Yes. As Sun Tzu said, Reed, be like water. And Bruce Lee as well, got a couple of good references there.
Yeah.
Water flows from high to low. It finds the weakest spot and it adapts.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, adaptability is a huge thing. If you're playing against somebody that you're clearly superior to, then you don't have to adapt at all. Obviously, you do whatever you want. It's when you're playing against some real talent that true tests come in of coaches and players. And yeah, I definitely feel that you can switch tactics without compromising who you are, like without compromising your identity, without switching up your philosophy and your style of play. If you're not adaptable, you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned Sun Tzu there. For those that don't know, Liam's in the process of publishing a book. There you go, Sun Tzu Soccer.
This is the actual size. It's not that size.
Yeah. Got some promotional stuff in the back there. I like it. So why don't you tell us about the book? What the process of kind of taking Sun Tzu's lessons and applying it to the game and all that.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to do that. This was back when, I was a history major in college. I was a double major actually in government and history, and we were assigned the art of war in a history class. And I think I read some of it, but didn't really pay as much attention as I should have. So I had the book, and I kept the book. And in 2011, right when I moved into coaching a club full time, I remember the day again very well, because it was a very significant moment. It was kind of a slow afternoon, and I decided to do some, professional development. And I had the book in my drawer, so I pulled it out and started reading, and it was instant. I would say within the first 30 seconds, I was like, hang on a minute, like there's something to this. And I flick through it, and I'm like, this is just some of these philosophies. They don't even need to be reworded for football. Like you could literally take it and transfer it. Obviously, some things need to be adapted, but it was just so glaringly obvious. And I did my due diligence and did some research and figured out that I wasn't the first person to realize how adaptable this book was and how profound it is, and how influential and how many different industries or disciplines have taken the book and done what I eventually have done. Business is the biggest one. There's, I don't know, countless books on Sun Tzu and the art of business, the art of management, the art of small business is one. Sun Tzu for executives is another. Sun Tzu for women is a book by a woman for women in the workplace, applying Sun Tzu's tactics. And I was like, this is just, this is really a good idea. And then I did a little bit more research, and I guess this is what really got me excited. And I was like, I'm doing this. This is going to be it. It's when I found out that in 2002, Scolari, when he was coaching the Brazilian national team in the World Cup, read the book, applied some of the tactics, and on some occasions he actually copied passages from the book and put them under his players' doors during the night. So I was like, you know, what more do you need? Brazil won 2002 World Cup, so I've got the validation that I need. I mean, it's difficult to think of how you could be validated more than, you know, having a coach use these principles to win the World Cup.
Yeah.
So right then I decided it was a good idea, or an idea that I just couldn't let go, and I began the process. Almost immediately, I began the process of going through the book, every single chapter, every paragraph, every word, and translating it to soccer. Mm-hmm. So if something needed to be adapted, then I would change it. But what I really felt was important was what I said at the beginning. Some things didn't even need to be changed. Like it was that brilliant and that not vague but comprehensive. That there's a dozen things in the book that you just didn't need to change, so I didn't change it. So that was what I did, and that started in 2011. And you know, I like to procrastinate like the best of people. So here we are 9 years later, and it's coming out a week on Tuesday, so April 21st. But yeah, 9 years, a little longer than I planned, but I'm glad it's coming out. Hopefully it will sell a lot of copies. If it doesn't, though, I'm still confident that it was a good idea, and I'm happy that I've done it.
Well, I can guarantee you got at least one copy being bought in Raleigh for sure. So I'm definitely going to pick it up when it comes out. You know, I think I haven't done as much reading of Sun Tzu's stuff, but I've read a little bit of it, and I think it's a great premise, and I'm looking forward to reading it for sure.
Well, there's thank you, Reed. There's you know, I think the person that influenced soccer more than anybody else, arguably, is Johan Cruyff, and I think I got about a dozen quotes from Cruyff that parallel Sun Tzu. Yeah. And one of them I've got on the back of the book. I've got a picture of Sun Tzu and a picture of Cruyff. And under Sun Tzu, it's the quote is, "He wins his battles by making no mistakes, because making no mistakes means defeating an opponent that is already beaten." Something like that. Make no mistakes. Mm-hmm. Cruyff was very famously quoted as saying almost the exact same thing. Soccer is a game with least mistakes. The team that makes the least mistakes usually wins. Yeah. That, again, when that moment when I read that was kind of like when I read about Scolari using it to win the World Cup. I was like, well, this is just, I mean, what you've got Johan Cruyff here saying the same stuff.
Yeah. You'll notice right above my head is a Ajax painting that my wife painted for me. So yeah, okay. Cruyff is a big influence for me as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I did like that. I did see that.
In between all my United gear. So, what's one of your favorite coaching memories?
Well, there's a few. So I guess to try and narrow it down. After I left college, the first coaching job I had was I was teaching high school, so I was coaching the soccer team there as well. I was actually the assistant coach to a guy who became a really good friend of mine. It was, you know, I'm not necessarily the easiest person to coach with, But we had such a great relationship. He was so much fun. Really liked the guy, a guy called John Sheffield. So we coached together the high school team, Cedartown High School. And actually, we had great fun. We had good success. We made the state tournament a couple of times, which was, for this very small rural school, was kind of unprecedented. And that was great, and we had fun during practice. But it was the bus rides; those are my favorite memories, actually. It was an all Hispanic team, so culturally, as far as soccer was concerned, like, we were very in sync. Mm-hmm. And they were just so much fun. The kids were so much fun. So again, I had good memories on the field. We were successful, but yeah, it was being around the kids. It's being on the bus journeys, like the ridiculous rap battles that they would have. Like it was really funny. Like I don't think I know I've never laughed as hard in my life. Yeah. So
I think that's that's something that always keeps coming up whenever I ask that question of coaches. It's not always, we won this game, or we beat this team, or we did something like that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite teams that I've ever coached was my least successful team. We won the least amount of games. We probably had one of the least amount of talents that we've had on a team, but they were just such a great group, and they worked hard. And I could tell them that if they ran through the wall and brought me back a brick, we would be better, and they would go do it for me. And those are some of those things that it's definitely, the profession's not about, just winning or that stuff. Obviously, as coaches, we are competitive and we want to win, but it's about those relationships and those experiences, not just on the field, that I think are the most rewarding pieces of what we do.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not going to take credit for this, but I can't remember who said it to me. But it might have even been on that youth license where somebody came up and said, "Look, if it's only about winning and losing, then you're going to be miserable half the time."
Yep.
And that really struck a chord. There aren't many coaches that have records, where they're winning 80 or 90% of their games. I think even Sir Alex is, batting maybe 65, 70%. Mm-hmm. Most of us not doing as well. So yeah, if you take it as 50-50, like, is that the way you want to live your life? Like, it's not the way I want to live my life. And you're right, like, it is a little bit about winning. Like, yeah. It is. Like, I do want to win. And I want to win whatever game, whatever age. It does matter to me. But if it's the be all and end all, then you are going to be miserable half of your life. And I think that is not the way to live.
Yeah, for sure. What's one of your favorite activities to do with your teams?
Okay, so I mentioned before, anything to do with combination play, support play, but anything to do with combination play, I really enjoy. I've got a couple that I guess would be difficult to explain, although I'd be happy to email them to you, and you can put them on the YouTube channel or however you wanted to use them. But in terms of a game I could describe, it's a short field game that I played first in college, I guess. It's so we did it by, I guess it would be 36 yards long, and the field would be 40 yards wide, and you have the halfway line, right? And it's, let's say, 3v1, right? So you've got 3 defenders in their half and 1 forward in the forwards in the half, and the other team's set up exactly the opposite. You're not allowed to cross the halfway line. So it's a small field game, basically, and you're only allowed in the half that is your designated half. If you're a defender, you're in the defensive half. If you're a forward, you're in the forwards half. And because the defenders so far outnumber the forward, the idea is that you pass the ball around between the three of you and the goalkeeper, like creating that diamond shape. You make the forward work, and if forward wins the ball, that's great. They can take a shot, but you work to get a good shooting option as soon as possible, and then you take a shot. And it's since you're 18 yards out at the closest, it's like shooting right from the edge of the box. And like, who doesn't love that? Like, who doesn't love shooting? And because of the way it's set up, because players are limited in where they can move, you have manipulated it into such a way that even if you do it with, let's say, a less than talented group, they're going to get shots off. Like, it's just it's a matter of percentages. Like, it's going to work. So I like it. I like it because there's lots of passing, there's lots of shooting, and you're almost guaranteed to get what you want out of it.
Yeah, I think I've played something very, very similar to that as well, for sure. Kind of whenever we've played it in the past, we've done it with our team. We play with my boys' team. We play a 4-3-3 and really play with like a true target. So you've got to find that target's feet, and if you're able to find their feet before you get a shot off, you can go and join it and support it. So there's lots of different tweaks you can put on that activity, but it's definitely a fun one for sure.
Yeah, there are. You're absolutely right. There are a few progressions and tweaks like you could do, definitely. But yeah, that basic exercise, I really love that. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. What do you feel is the most important piece of being a coach?
I liked the question, and it took me a while to think about it. I think the most important thing about being a coach is the same as being a person, which I think the most important attributes to being a decent person are to be compassionate and be empathic. So having compassion and having empathy towards people. I don't know how you could be a good coach without that. I guess you could be like a real strict disciplinarian and like just beat it into people. That's not what I value. Yeah. So yeah, the most important things about being a coach, I think, are to be compassionate and to have empathy towards people.
Yeah, I think, and that's another thing that's come up quite a bit. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. So, I think the big thing is just continuing to build the relationships, and remember that even inside of the game, there's things that are outside of the game that are going to affect your players, and just being there and helping them through some of the difficult things that they have to deal with off the field as well.
Yeah. But like I mentioned to you before, I spent some time, deliberate time, specific time, trying to come up with my philosophies. And I came up with my philosophy on style of play, and I came up with a philosophy of how I would like a player to be, the sort of player I like. And I came up with one on coaching as well, and I do believe that coaches should be demanding. And this was all based off, of course, you go back to yourself and you think about, okay, what am I like, and what do I believe is positive about me? And I think I'm a demanding coach, and I think that that's important, to push your players. I think it's important that you're honest with your players. But the final part that I had and still have as my philosophy is to be caring. I think it's okay to be demanding of your players. Like you said, if they know that you care, they'll respond. Yeah. If they don't think you care, then you can be really demanding, and I don't think that they will respond as well. You can be honest with your players, and if they know that you care, they'll know that honesty is coming from a good place. You can be honest with your players, and if you don't care about them, then that can seem like you're just you're real nasty. Yeah. And again, they're not going to respond as well. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a practical aspect to my thoughts on this as well. It's not just about, displaying good virtues, but also, getting the best out of your players. And like you said it, like if they know that you care about them, then I think that, you know, that goes a long way to improving their performance.
For sure, for sure. So you said the book comes out on the 21st?
It does. It does. Here's my original copy with all my original notes in it. Keeping that, and here's my author's proof that I got sent through the other day, that I'm still tweaking. But yeah, the comes out on the 21st. I will spend the rest of the day with my final edits, and then submit it, and that'll be that.
Very nice, very nice. Where will people be able to find it?
Amazon. Until some massive publisher realizes what a good idea this is and decides to put it in Barnes and Noble, then it's just going to be available on Amazon. But, you know, at least everybody has access to that.
Very nice, very nice. So any advice that you would give to young coaches or just coaches that are just looking for something new?
My advice to young coaches would be to do something that I regret not doing more of, which is to remain humble. I think I had a habit when I was younger of believing that I knew it all, and I really didn't. So I think I've got more humble with age, and with that humility, you know, you open your mind up and you can improve yourself. It's you know, it's interesting how that works.
Yeah.
So that would probably be my biggest piece of advice, is to remain humble, listen to what people say, do as much professional development as possible. And that, I think coaching courses are important, but, you know, that's not the only form of professional development, and picking up a soccer book is not the only form of, or watching soccer is not the only form of professional development. Like this, starting out, for me, this was professional development. I was like, I wonder how this could work. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a couple of other good books as well, not directly related to soccer. The Goldmine Effect, I really like that one. The Talent Code, I think a lot of coaches have heard of, by Daniel Coyle. So yeah, I think remain humble, remain open-minded, and try and improve yourself.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the old quote: the older I get, the less I know. You know, yes. I think it's the recognition that there's always something out there that can help us be better. You know, and you know, I've kind of done that myself. I can definitely relate. You know, I was not a bad player coming out of college, and
right.
I was very, very lucky that my first coaching job was extremely humbling because we were awful. And it made me know right away that playing and coaching are two very, very different worlds, for sure. So.
Yes, they are. You're right about that.
So, well, awesome. Liam, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. I'm looking forward to the book coming out, looking forward to getting a good read. We got plenty of time for it right now, unfortunately, and fortunately. So we look forward to seeing you again soon, okay?
Thank you, Reed. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.